After a breakup, the mind does this thing where it searches for answers, like a detective desperate to solve a case that's already been closed. You replay conversations, analyze every little detail, and ask yourself the same question over and over again. Why? Why did this happen? Why did they change? Why wasn't I enough? The need for closure becomes an obsession. But the problem is that we often look for closure in the one place that will never give it to us, the person who left. It's one of the biggest mistakes you can make. You think that if you just have one more conversation, one more chance to get an explanation, you'll feel better. You convince yourself that if you can just understand their reasons, you'll be able to move on. But what you don't realize is that this search for closure isn't actually about them. It's about you. It's about the part of you that doesn't want to accept that something has ended. The truth is, even if they sat you down and gave you a perfectly rational, well thought out reason for the breakup, it still wouldn't change the pain. It still wouldn't make you feel okay about it. Because breakups are rarely just about logic. They're about emotions, and emotions don't always have clean, satisfying explanations. Sometimes people leave for reasons that don't even make sense to them. Sometimes they walk away because of their own fears, their own insecurities, their own inability to commit, not because you weren't enough, but because they weren't ready to be what you needed. And sometimes they don't even fully know why. But here's the thing, closure isn't something someone else gives you. It's something you create for yourself. If you keep going back to them, looking for a better explanation, you're really just postponing the inevitable. You're keeping the door open when it needs to be closed. You're giving them the power to determine when you get to move on. And when you hand someone else that power, you become stuck in a cycle of waiting for answers, waiting for validation, waiting for a version of the story that makes you feel better. But what if I told you that you don't need their words to move forward? What if I told you that the only person who can truly give you closure is you? Instead of chasing an explanation, shift the focus to what actually helps you heal. The first step is acceptance. Accepting that it's over. Accepting that you might never get the answers you want, and accepting that even if you did, it wouldn't change the reality. The second step is choosing to redefine closure. Because closure isn't about knowing why something ended. It's about deciding that the ending is enough. It's about saying, even if I never get the explanation I think I need, I will still move forward. And I know it's easier said than done. It's tempting to reach out, to send that message, to ask them if they ever really loved you, if they ever meant what they said. But what are you really hoping to hear? If they say they never loved you, that will hurt. If they say they did, but it wasn't enough, that will hurt too. No matter what answer they give, it won't erase the fact that they made a choice to walk away. And that choice tells you everything you actually need to know. So instead of searching for closure from them, start creating it for yourself. Start focusing on what you can control. Your healing, your growth, your next chapter. Closure isn't about their explanation. It's about your decision to stop needing one. And when you do that, when you finally stop chasing answers and start embracing what's next, you'll realize that the closure you were looking for was never outside of you. It was always within you. You know what's funny? The first thing people do after a breakup isn't to delete pictures, throw away old gifts, or even call their friends for support. No, the first thing they do, they check their ex's social media. And then it begins. The late night scrolling, the obsessive refreshing, the overanalyzing of every post, every like, every comment. It's like we become our own worst enemies, willingly feeding the heartbreak instead of healing it. Let's be honest, deep down, you already know that checking their profile won't bring you peace, but there's a part of you hoping for something. Maybe they're miserable without you. Maybe they're secretly regretting the breakup. Maybe they haven't moved on yet, and that somehow makes it easier for you to hold on. And if they do seem fine, if they're out with friends, smiling in pictures, maybe even posting about how great life is, that stings. And yet, we keep looking, But here's what you have to realize. Social media is a highlights reel, not reality. You know this because you've done it too. How many times have you put on a brave face, posted a picture, or shared a quote to make it seem like you're doing just fine, even when inside you're still picking up the pieces? So why do we torture ourselves this way? Because deep down we're afraid of being forgotten, afraid that they're moving on faster than we are, afraid that if we don't keep watching, we'll lose the last thread of connection we still have. But let's flip this for a second. What's really happening here? Every time you check their profile, you're reinforcing the belief that your happiness still depends on them, that your worth is tied to whether they miss you, whether they look happy, whether they seem to be struggling without you. You're keeping them on a pedestal when in reality, the relationship is over for a reason. Every click, every refresh, every deep dive into their tagged photos is an investment, not into yourself, not into your future, but into a past that's already closed its doors. And if you keep pouring energy into a door that's shut, how will you ever notice the ones that are still open? Maybe you tell yourself, I just want to check once in a while. But that once in a while turns into every morning, every lunch break, every night before you sleep. Before you know it, your mind is trapped in a loop, waiting for the next post, the next sign, the next piece of evidence that might validate your feelings or prove that they still care. But even if they do care, even if they are hurting, it won't change your pain. It won't make the breakup easier. If anything, it keeps you in limbo, stuck between the past and a future you're too distracted to step into. And let's talk about what this does to your self-worth. Because every time you see something that hurts, a picture of them with someone new, a night out that looks like they're having fun, you start to create a narrative in your head. Maybe I wasn't enough. Maybe they never really loved me. Maybe they're happier without me. And that narrative, that's what breaks you. Not the picture, not the post, not the person. They're just living their life. It's the meaning you attach to it that makes it painful. And if you keep doing this, you end up rewriting history, turning the relationship into something it never was, turning yourself into someone you're not. So here's the truth. Healing starts the moment you decide to let go. And letting go doesn't mean you have to wake up tomorrow and be over it. It means making one small decision at a time, starting with this. Stop looking. Mute them. Unfollow them. Block them if you have to. Not because you're bitter, not because you want to prove a point, but because your peace is more important than their updates. If you truly want to move on, give yourself space to breathe. Give yourself the chance to wake up without them being the first thing on your mind. Let yourself rediscover who you are without their influence, without the constant comparison, without the never-ending cycle of what-ifs. Because the moment you stop watching their life, you get to start living yours. And that's where real healing begins. You know, one of the biggest mistakes people make after a breakup is rushing into something new, thinking it will erase the pain of what just happened. It's tempting, isn't it? You're sitting there feeling rejected, feeling like you weren't enough. And suddenly, the quickest solution seems to be finding someone else to fill that void. You tell yourself, if I can just get someone else to want me, then I'll feel worthy again. But let's be real. What you're really doing is using another person as a painkiller, a temporary distraction from the emotions you don't want to face. When you go through a breakup, there's a hole in your life where that person used to be. You used to talk to them every day, share moments, plan for the future, and suddenly all of that is gone. And what do we do when we're in pain? We try to replace what was lost as quickly as possible because sitting with that emptiness feels unbearable. But here's the thing, numbing yourself with a rebound isn't healing. It's avoiding. It's like putting a bandage over a wound but never cleaning it out. It might look fine for a while, but underneath it's still infected. The problem with jumping into a new relationship right away is that you're not really choosing that person. You're choosing relief. You're not seeing them for who they are. You're seeing them as a way to make yourself feel desirable again, to prove to yourself that you're still wanted. And when you enter something new for the wrong reasons, you bring all the baggage of your last relationship with you. You're not starting fresh, you're carrying unresolved pain into a new dynamic. And that's unfair to you and to them. Think about it. If you haven't taken the time to process what went wrong, to understand your own emotions and to heal, then all you're doing is repeating the same patterns with a different person. Maybe your ex made you feel unappreciated, and now you're seeking validation from someone new. Maybe they left you feeling insecure, and now you're clinging to anyone who gives you attention. But is that love? Or is that just fear of being alone? A rebound might give you a temporary high, the rush of attraction, the validation of knowing someone wants you. It feels good in the moment, but what happens when that high fades? What happens when you're alone again and you realize you're still carrying the same wounds, the same doubts, the same fears? You see, no one can heal you except you. No amount of external validation will ever fill the space that self-worth is supposed to occupy. Healing after a breakup is about reconnecting with yourself. It's about taking a step back and asking, what do I need right now? Not, who do I need right now? There's a big difference. Because if you don't give yourself time to understand your own emotions, to grieve, to reflect, to grow, then you're just using people as emotional crutches. And here's the truth. People can feel that. They can sense when they're being used as a distraction, even if it's subconscious. And deep down, you'll know it too. The strongest, most fulfilling relationships don't come from desperation. They come from two people who are whole on their own, choosing to be together because they truly want to, not because they need to. When you rush into something just to fill a gap, you're not choosing from a place of strength. You're choosing from a place of fear. And relationships built on fear don't last. They're fragile because they're built on unstable foundations. The moment the other person pulls away, doubts arise. The moment they don't text back fast enough, insecurity creeps in. And suddenly, you're not just dealing with the pain of one heartbreak, you're setting yourself up for another. Instead of looking for someone to save you from your loneliness, embrace the discomfort, sit with it, let yourself feel it, because that discomfort is where the real work happens. It's in that space where you get to ask yourself, what did I learn from this? What do I want differently next time? Who do I want to become? That's where real healing starts. That's where you build resilience, confidence, and self-worth that isn't dependent on someone else's validation. And when you do that, when you truly take the time to heal and grow, you'll find that your next relationship won't be something you fall into out of need. It'll be something you choose from a place of strength, from a place of knowing who you are and what you truly deserve. And that, right there, is how you break the cycle. That's how you stop settling for temporary fixes and start building something real. So if you're coming out of a breakup right now, don't run from the pain. Don't mask it with someone new. Sit with it. Work through it. Grow from it. Because the relationship that's meant for you won't come from trying to escape yourself. It'll come from becoming the best version of yourself. And that is the real win. It's easy to fall into the trap of romanticizing the past after a breakup. You sit there replaying the best moments like a highlight reel, convincing yourself that what you had was perfect, that you'll never find anything like it again. The dinners, the inside jokes, the late night conversations. Suddenly they take on this almost mythical quality. Your mind edits out the arguments, the moments of doubt, the ways you felt unseen or unappreciated. And in doing that, you trap yourself in a love story that doesn't even exist anymore. The problem with romanticizing the past is that it distorts your memory. It makes you believe that what you lost was flawless, when in reality, no relationship is without its struggles. If it ended, there was a reason. Maybe it was incompatibility. Maybe it was unmet needs. Maybe it was just timing, but something wasn't working. Yet when we're heartbroken, we tend to ignore that. We create an illusion of perfection because in some way, it feels safer to hold on to a fantasy than to face the discomfort of moving forward. But let's be real. Staying attached to an illusion only prolongs your suffering. The more you cling to the idea that this person was the one, that no one else will ever understand you like they did, the more you resist healing. You're not just grieving the relationship, you're grieving the version of the story you told yourself. And that's what makes it so hard to let go. So what do we do? How do we stop this cycle of idealizing what's gone? First, we have to remind ourselves that memory is selective. Our brains are wired to emphasize what we want to see. Just like a social media highlight reel, we focus on the curated version of our past rather than the full picture. The truth is, if you were brutally honest with yourself, you'd see the moments that chipped away at your happiness, you'd remember the unanswered texts, the nights you went to bed feeling alone, the parts of yourself you had to shrink just to make things work. If it was really as perfect as you're making it out to be, you wouldn't be in this position right now. Second, we have to stop equating comfort with love. Just because someone felt familiar doesn't mean they were right for you. People confuse attachment with love all the time. You were attached to them. You got used to their presence, to their habits, to the way they made you feel. And now that they're gone, your brain is reacting to that loss. But let's make one thing clear. Attachment isn't necessarily love. Love makes you better. Love makes you grow. If this relationship was meant to last, it wouldn't have ended. The hardest part is accepting that moving forward doesn't mean you didn't love them. It doesn't mean what you had wasn't real. It just means that your future holds something different, something that might serve you in a way this relationship couldn't. Every time you catch yourself reminiscing, ask yourself, am I remembering what was, or am I remembering what I wish it had been? That question alone can bring a whole new level of clarity. At the end of the day, nostalgia is powerful, but so is reality. And the reality is, your story didn't end with them, it's still being written. The sooner you stop looking back at a version of the past that no longer exists, the sooner you'll be able to create a future that actually fulfills you. Don't let a fantasy keep you from the happiness that's still waiting for you. You know, after a breakup, there's this temptation to let the pain define us, to sit in it, soak in it, and let it take over every waking moment. It's natural, it's human. When someone who once made up such a huge part of your life is suddenly gone, it feels like there's this massive void. And the scariest part, it's not just about missing them, it's about feeling like a part of you is missing. But that's where so many people go wrong. They let that pain dictate who they are. It starts subtly. You stop doing the things you once loved. That workout routine, skipped. That hobby you used to enjoy, forgotten. That drive you had for your goals, it suddenly seems pointless. Because what's the point, right? When the person you imagine being with is no longer there, it feels like the vision you had for the future has shattered. And in that heartbreak, it's so easy to let the sadness become an identity rather than just a passing emotion. But here's the truth. You are not your breakup. Your value, your worth, your potential, none of it is determined by whether someone stays or leaves. And yet so many people act like their entire existence is tied to that one relationship. They make the pain their home. They start to believe that happiness is no longer possible unless that person walks back into their life. But that's a lie. It's an illusion that keeps you stuck, repeating the same emotions over and over again instead of actually moving forward. The worst thing you can do after a breakup is lose yourself in the pain. And I don't mean suppress it. I don't mean pretend you're fine when you're not. What I mean is don't make it your identity. Feel the sadness, but don't let it control you. Process the loss, but don't let it define you. Because there's a version of you that exists beyond this heartbreak, one that is stronger, wiser, and ready for something better. But you can't meet that version of yourself if you stay buried in what was. One of the biggest mistakes people make is thinking that moving on means forgetting, that healing means the love didn't matter. That couldn't be further from the truth. Moving on isn't about erasing the past. It's about choosing yourself in the present. It's about deciding that your happiness isn't tied to someone else's presence in your life. It's about understanding that while love is beautiful, Your life is not built on just one person. It's built on you. You have to make a choice. Are you going to sit in this heartbreak and let it consume you? Or are you going to use it as fuel? Because here's the thing. Pain can either destroy you or it can build you into something extraordinary. The difference lies in how you respond to it. If you allow this breakup to be the thing that breaks you, you're giving it far more power than it deserves. But if you use it as a lesson, as a catalyst for growth, suddenly it becomes the very thing that shapes you into the best version of yourself. Think about all the energy you're pouring into sadness, into regret, into analyzing every little detail of what went wrong. Now, imagine if you took that same energy and redirected it into something that actually serves you, into your career, into your passions, into becoming so strong, so fulfilled on your own that you don't need validation from anyone else. Imagine waking up and realizing that your happiness was never dependent on another person in the first place, that it was always something you had the power to create for yourself. This is the time to focus on you, to reclaim your life, your confidence, your sense of purpose. And no, it won't happen overnight. There will be days where the sadness creeps back in, where the memories feel too heavy. That's okay. Healing isn't linear. But every time you choose to move forward, even just a little, you're proving to yourself that your happiness is not tied to someone else's decision to stay or leave. So don't let this be the thing that breaks you. Let it be the thing that builds you. Because one day, you're going to look back on this moment and realize it was the turning point, the moment you stopped waiting for someone else to make you happy and started creating that happiness for yourself.